Hello everyone, here's Aiko from Female Pressure. Here's Menk on the picture. Today we want to introduce you our Facts 2020. Thank you for NEXUS experience of Mutek San Francisco and Currents FM. Meg was in the core team, so-called Troublemakers, and then she can give us a deeper insight of our study of this year. As the first thing, we will watch our introduction short video. Here we go.
Hi, Female Pressure is a support network and database for people who operate in the electronic arts, electronic music specifically. I founded it 22 years ago because people asked me a lot of times, are there any other women who work in electronic music? So Female Pressure is the answer to ignorance, I would say.
Facts provide important data to the electronic music community. Because of facts and other studies like facts, we know that female and non-binary artists are far less booked than male acts. This knowledge is a powerful tool to promote gender diversity in lineups in the festival bookings.
Since 2012, FACTS has quantified the gender distribution in electronic music festival lineups. New to this edition is the non-binary category. We also made an even greater effort at including festivals outside of North America and Europe to provide a more global view of gender distribution in these lineups.
FACTS is a call to action for festival organizers to make more conscious efforts at curating more diverse lineups. While we celebrate the increasing diversity at music festivals, inequality still remains, especially among artists of color. To truly internalize inclusivity, festivals should be safe and accessible to all. Festival organizers must hold themselves accountable to and incorporate the expertise and values of local DIY underground spaces.
That was the introduction, and then you see now the cover of Facts 2020. We have now here the version 1.5, and we will have a closer look. So I try to read our background of this study in my strange English, and hopefully you understand what I mean.
Perfectly.
So the background. The Female Pleasure Facts Survey is a continuous project undertaken by volunteer members of the Female Pleasure Network that quantifies the gender distribution of artists performing at electronic music festivals worldwide. Facts 2020 is the fourth edition of the survey, which was first published in 2013 and updated in 2015 and 2017. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, thank you. And yeah, I just wanted to point out the emphasis on worldwide there in the background. There are several things that are new to FACTS 2020, but worldwide was one of them, where we really made an effort to count festivals, festival lineups taking place somewhere other than Europe and North America, which is where the vast majority of our data comes from. So it's still not as much as we would like, but we added some African festivals, some different festivals from around Asia, Pacific Island festivals. So we are trying to, every edition of the survey, we're trying to push it more global so we can get a better picture, like I said in the video, like a better picture of the global situation with electronic music festivals.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's, and you and I have discussed about the difficulty in counting some of these areas, you know, like in the African festivals, finding information about the artists online was difficult.
Yeah.
And I know when you were counting the Japanese festivals, you were coming up.
So difficult. Like you can't recognize the agenda on base of the names, and then especially as I was counting Japanese festivals, and then quite some artists having strange names or like really not gender specific names, artist names. So I am looking into internet and then find some articles about them. But then since Japanese is quite highly context oriented language, so that subject is often not written or spoken in the text. So you don't have any pronouns in it, and then I'm like, who are they? And also, quite some Japanese artists are shy, and then they don't show themselves on picture. And then I mean, also, how do they look like? Doesn't say anything about gender, but still there was quite less information, and so it took quite a lot of research work to count all these festivals. I mean, like I counted just super few of them. So I'm very overwhelmed how much festivals, many festivals you counted. Yeah, maybe I can read this results section so that everybody knows how many festivals it was.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we collected data for 392 festival editions of 159 different festivals from 2017 to 2019. Adding this to the previous survey data, Female Pressure has collected data for 675 festival editions, 241 unique festivals in total, from 2012 to 2019 from 46 countries. The proportion of female acts rose from 9.2% in 2012 to 24.6% in 2019. Larger festivals tend to have lower proportions of female acts. Data for 2017 to 2019 show that publicly funded festivals and festivals with female artistic directors have higher proportions of female acts. Yeah.
Right, and those are two new things. More, in addition, more new things to Facts 2020 is we attempted at least to count the gender of the curation team and whether or not the festival received public funding. It was imperfect because a lot of festivals don't publish this information on their websites, and generally the larger the festival, the less information you're going to get about the team behind the festival and who's funding it. So it was definitely hard. There, as we'll see later in the tables, there were a lot of festivals that we couldn't find out the data about the curator's gender or the funding. So we got enough data, I think, to make these assertions in the results section. But it wasn't every single festival that we were able to do that for. And that's just for 2017 to 2019. We didn't go back and try to research back to 2012. And going back to our what we were saying about the finding out the gender of the artists, like in Japan or elsewhere, that this is also related to another new addition to Facts 2020.
Yeah, I just realized that I should have read before go to results to methods, right?
Right.
So that this is mentioning non-binary artists. Yeah. Maybe I read this now. The method. Yeah, data was provided by the female pressure troublemakers, female pressure members, and festival organizers. Gender proportions for each festival are assessed for female, male, non-binary, and mixed acts. Non-binary for data starting 2017. This is what you are now about to telling.
Yes.
The number of acts are counted per slot on stage time. Acts include musical and visual artists or bands who appear on stage as they are listed in the festival's program lineup.
Yes. So two things in that paragraph. Yeah, the non-binary category we added mainly for people whose pronouns don't align exactly with female and male. So we wanted to have a new category where people using they or a mixture of she and they or he and they to be able to kind of to count them more accurately. So in nowadays, festivals are getting a little better about making these things clear in their artist bios on the festival pages. And artists are being more upfront about how they refer to themselves. But it was in the data for 2017 and 2018, it was tricky sometimes to figure out, how exactly to count them. So that's a challenge. Another challenge that I know you and I have discussed before is just the act of counting is very difficult. And because we count by slot of stage time, it means that if you have an artist who's performing every night of a festival, they get counted for every night. So that's 5, male slots or female slots or non-binary slots. So it's not just that they're listed on the lineup, but that they're in the schedule. How many times are they in the schedule? And that was hard to find for a lot of festivals. So again, this is where the data gets a little wobbly. Is sometimes we could only find a lineup and no schedule of the festival. So we just have to trust that none of the artists were performing a ton of times. And then when we did have a schedule, we could get a more accurate count in terms of slot of stage time. So, but our statistician always says, we do enough work, diligent work at counting that even with these little possible variations, our data set is pretty stable. So we can trust the numbers, basically.
Yeah. Maybe at this point we can encourage festival organizers to submit by themselves their figures, maybe.
Yeah, or at least an accurate schedule would be really helpful. A lot of festivals, they'll post a phase 1 poster somewhere, and say, hey, these are the people we've booked so far. And then I can't find the final one. I can only find that sort of half final one, so in general, it would be nice if festival organizers could be more clear about their schedule, clear about who's on their curation team, clear about who's funding the festival, archiving their festivals so that we don't lose the entire lineup when they just replace it with the next year's lineup. So there's a lot of challenges and things that we would love to have organizers do. In addition to booking more women.
Yes, this is most important thing. But true, since I remember as I counted Fusion Festival in Germany, for example, on which, I don't know, tons of artists are participating. That was also quite exhausting work, since so many artists. And then also, to be honest, as I was playing there, I didn't give them my bio and then no link to nothing. So people see just Mo-chan and then what is this? Really no information. So there were so many artists like that. So this is also something difficult. But at the same time, as a festival goers, maybe it's also fun to see the schedule on site, and then this is not revealed in advance. So this is something difficult to get online, this information. So maybe, if we ask for information, maybe festival organizers can give us the precise last information.
We did send, I think it ended up being 3 emails over the course of 2 years, where we asked organizers for their data, 2 emails over the course of 2 years asking them for their lineup or gender counts in the Google form that we use. And then the third email was to ask them for this other information, like who curates your, lineup, who's funding your festival, these kinds of things. So those emails typically do not get answered very often, but for FACS 2020, we actually did, I'm pretty sure it's 32 festival organizers got back to us, which was, I think, triple who got back to us in 2017. So it's it's getting, I think, as FACS gains in visibility, organizers are more, they recognize in the subject line, oh, FACS, I know what that is, I'll open this email and maybe respond to it. So because festival organizers are very busy people, obviously, so getting them to respond to us is really, it's always like Christmas for me when I get a response from them. So it's nice.
Yeah, good. So like the conclusion was, we see a steady rise in female acts in electronic music festivals over the past 8 years. However, unfortunately, only 25% of all acts are female in comparison to 65% male acts. Yeah, so like we go to the further pages and then see details, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think our methods are, we've talked about that, and we do what we call verify some of the data where we recount festivals. We tried to recount all of the data that we received from organizers, just because if you're not familiar with how we count the data, it can be confusing, and some organizers totally got it and some weren't totally sure like how to do it. So it's actually way more complicated than it sounds. So we double checked a lot of their numbers. Any new helper that volunteered for us, we would check, at least double check their first 2 or 3 counts just to make sure they understood how to do it. So, but we didn't get to double check all of them because it was just way too much work. We, by the end of it, we were all just completely fatigued and all of our helpers were tapped out. So we did verify a lot of it, and a lot of the counts that were, maybe a little less stable than like if a core team person was counting. So
I mean, like I was counting at least 2 times my festivals, and then like if it was not same figure, then I was counting 3 or 4th time. So my figures were hopefully reliable figures.
We trust your data, Aiko. We did not bother to recount your data. Thank you for that.
Thank you. So like methods, and then we talk. Now we are having these pages of results.
Yes. And figure 1, the pie graphs, I think it's the left graph is talking about all of the data, and then the right graph is just these last last 2 years, 2017 to 2019. So as you can see, the proportions, they really haven't. They started out small. In 2012 it was, I think, 12% is what you read. So, but it's basically, doubled-ish, sort of doubled. But when you start from such a small number and you double it, it's still a pretty small number. So, it's definitely moving very slowly, but we're just hoping, we're really hoping that FACS maybe played a little bit of a part in that increase over the last 7 years, and that maybe as we keep going and raising awareness, that that number can, if that number doubled again the next time we do FACS, that would be amazing.
Yeah, it would be cool. And so like we have here on the right hand side the result of 2017 to 19. The male acts was 70% of all acts, and female 21%, non-binary 1%, mixed act was 7%, and 2% was unidentified.
Yeah, and unidentified is we couldn't figure out which bucket to put them in. It's not that they don't that they've said I'm unidentified. It's that we can't figure it. It's like we were discussing before.
Yeah.
So so that's the more festivals we count, the slightly higher the unidentified percentage gets, because we're just counting more acts. So there are going to be more people that, and electronic music has this, the festivals and the artists, sometimes there's this vibe of like anonymity or secrecy, and that can make it tricky. Like an artist, will never show their face and will never reveal who they are in real life, or like I think you mentioned a festival will just, it's part of their allure that only the people who went to the festival know what happened there, so you can't find a schedule or even a good lineup for them. So it's a tricky scene to be counting, but
still, I mean, like it's quite less unidentified percentage, I would say.
Yeah, it helps that the people that are counting, for the most part, are DJs. I'm not, but I know you are, and a lot of our other members are, and they just know a lot of acts. So that really helps that people embedded in the scene are making these analyses. So
yes. So we go to the next page.
I think the next really interesting one that I liked was figure 4, with where it compares like CTM and Mutek Barcelona. Yeah, so that one is interesting to me because it shows over the past 7 years, how much the percentage of female acts in those festivals. So that green one, I think that's Norberg. Yeah. So that's really, the red one too, CTM. It's a really dramatic rise. You can really just see the line shooting up like that. And I think you had said the CTM.
Yeah, CTM was at the panel discussion of our first Perspectives Festival, which was 2013 in Berlin about Planck Club. And then where we had 2 days of festival with workshops, panel discussions, and of course club nights. And then we invited also the organizer or curators of CTM festival to panel discussion, and actually pointed out, so to say, in face, like, hey, you are inviting tourist female acts. And then they made so super huge progression. And I would say like the top of this graph is 2017, and after that this female percentage went down a bit, but I assume that they invited more non-binary artists, so I wouldn't say that they are now inviting more male acts, but just they went more in the direction of gender diversity.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's something to keep in mind. If the female percentage here goes down, that doesn't necessarily mean they're booking more male acts. Yeah, an interesting one is that pink line. I think that's Lunch Meat, where they over doubled their female percentage and then went back to lower than where they started in 2012, in 2018 and 2019. So that to me is interesting, that while we generally see an upward trend, there are some festivals. And I think you had mentioned that this might correlate to who the curators were those years.
Yeah, maybe we come to the point later, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Oh, yeah. Definitely.
Yeah. But it's kind of interesting to see the general development, and I think this is really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we have these 2 donuts of gender proportions for European and North American festivals. looks quite similar. Male 69% in Europe, 75% in North America, and female acts are 21% in Europe, while 18% in the US. Non-binary 1 and 0%, mixed 7 and 5, and unidentified in both regions 2%.
Yeah.
Mm.
So, and I was, I mean, I don't know why, but I was kind of surprised how similar those donuts looked, because I guess, yeah, it's just very similar. But then we go down to table 3 and we get to see, first of all, the number of festivals we counted for each continent, sort of, and how much parity each of those areas had, you know. So like the Pacific region, we only counted 2 festivals, but 35% were female in those regions. So it's interesting.
Yeah, while in Asia, 15% was female artists and 73 male acts. So
Right.
normally 0.5%.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, but especially as I was counting Japanese festivals, and then also if I see Japanese platforms, I mean, now you see every day so many streamings, but then there are so less female artists in Japan, very present, and it's very sad. And also, I think it was last year Japanese female DJs tried to make an association, and then also kind of cooperation with Amsterdam. I forgot the name. I actually wanted to tell you about this, but I completely forgot the name. Chicks on, not Chicks on Speed, but Chicks on something. Anyway, and then as they presented their launch on the Japanese streaming platform, and both of this platform, like male person, was taking the last 10 minutes and he was talking all over alone. And then, like, I mean, this exactly is Japanese patriarchy in the DJ scene. It was very disappointing, but yeah, completely sorry, it's off topic, but Japan is very difficult with this gender issue.
Yeah, I think it's you know, yeah, we'll get into the next tables, but there's a lot of, the more visibility you have, the more the dominant group is going to try to take it away from you. You know, so it's okay to be a female or non-binary DJ as long as you're sort of just playing small venues. But the second you try to, you know, gain more visibility, you're going to start getting, unfortunately, a lot of male DJs maybe trying to push you down. So it's hard. It's a cultural thing too, you know, with, and not just in Japan, like over worldwide. It's a cultural thing where just these arenas are not, they're not welcoming to non-male artists. So it's, and we'll talk about that in a minute, and for the suggestions for the festival organizers, just creating spaces that feel safe for non-male artists. So yeah, there's a lot of reasons why these percentages are so low, and it has nothing to do with talent or availability of women DJs, because there's plenty out there.
Yeah, and if we are talking about safe space, I remember one news, I think last summer in a festival, I remember it was Inga Maura, and she wanted to go to her DJ booth, and then she was punched by a security guy since this guy didn't believe she is DJing or something. And then I think it's very important, not only within the curator team, but complete, including security and bar and all people working at festival, to more make sensitivity and then like respect to all festival attendants, like as artists and audience, everyone.
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
very important.
Yeah, that's a problem we've heard about on the female pressure mailing list, and I think it's just more prevalent than we realize, is that female DJs and just musicians in general face harassment and even abuse, physical or verbal abuse from people who are, part of the staff. So like the security or, stage manager or sound person, like it's, you have to start at the top as a festival organizer. You have to say, everyone involved is respectful of all human life and isn't going to punch anyone. And, that in that will impress that onto the audience then, and make the audience a safer space. If the festival organizer says we are respecting human beings here, then people will be respectful of each other in the audience, most likely. So yeah. But
let's see. And then we see now here table 5, gender proportions by festival size. And or the table 6.
Yeah.
So like
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Sorry. I have here small festivals with 20 to 29 acts, had 29% of female acts and 61% male acts, 1% non-binary acts, 7.8% mixed acts, and 0.8 was unidentified, while very large festivals with more than 90 acts had 18.3% female acts, 72.7% of male acts, and 0.5 non-binary acts, and 6.6 mixed acts, and 1.9 remain unidentified.
Yeah, so you can see in these tables, the table 5 and 6 is just, different categories of small and large. The table 6 is 4 categories, but whichever one you're looking at, you can see a general trend where the smaller the festival, the more diverse your gender distribution is going to be, and the larger the festival in terms of the number of acts that are being booked, the fewer female acts or gender diversity you're going to see. So, and that is linked to table 7, the gender of the artistic directors. It's the same. I mean, it's pretty predictable, but you can see that if you have a female team or a team of different genders, then you're going to have more gender diversity. And if you have a team that's just all male, then you're going to have less gender diversity.
So like we have here all female team of directors. Then they had 44.4 female acts, 43.9 male acts, 4.2 non-binary acts, and 6.3 mixed acts, while all male curators team booked 20% female acts and 70% male acts, and 0.5 non-binary acts, and 8% of mixed acts. And the mixed team booked 27.7 female acts. Male acts was 58.1%. Non-binary acts was 1.4%. And most percent of mixed acts here, 11.4%.
Yeah, and I thought that was interesting that if you have a team of different genders, you're going to book more acts that have people of different genders performing together, which I thought was interesting. So female percentage is lower, but the male percentage is only just above half, and that's because they're booking more in other areas. So, and then you can see unknown is 223 festival editions. So that's a significant number of editions that we just couldn't find any data on the curators, and we couldn't get the organizers to respond to our email. So we got a lot of data, but not as, not nearly as much as we wanted. So
but like, do we have, since I think as we were talking about the size of festivals, I was thinking like if you have a smaller festival, I think they tend to have more personal feeling, and then they are more having quite artistic particular direction, so that we can find on a website or something who is curating this festival, while bigger festivals maybe don't care who is curating. Maybe.
Yeah, there's definitely a connection there between, I would guess, I can't say for sure, but I would guess that most of these festivals where we could find the data about their artistic directors, most of these are probably going to be smaller festivals. Yeah, like you said, the larger the festival, both in terms of the lineup and the attendance, the harder it is to get like a really crystal clear artistic vision and a kind of pride in these are the people who are hand picking the artists for you. It's definitely like the more it's really, I think, very closely linked to money. The smaller festivals, they're about the artistic vision. The larger the festival, the more about is recouping all the money that you're laying out. So you're less concerned with telling people who you are and more concerned with getting their money so that they will
getting more attention.
Right. Yeah. And more visibility. So again, it makes sense that anything to do with money or power or visibility, we're going to see less gender diversity. And the smaller it gets in terms of just the amount of money involved, the more gender diversity you're going to see in the curators and the lineup. So
yeah, and if we are talking about money, we can see this table 8 with public funding.
Right. Yeah, so that was another correlation like that you read out in the results section, where it seemed that the more public funding, or if a festival got public funding, there would be more gender diversity. And if they were completely privately funded, then there would be less gender diversity. But again, you can see unknown there, 197 editions. So we I would guess that the 157 festivals there that did get public funding, those are almost, I would guess, almost entirely European, because Europe tends to fund the arts more than other places, and a lot of them require the festival to make it very known that they're getting public funding. So their website will say, this cultural institution funded us. So, and a lot of those institutions require that you have more diversity. So it makes sense that the ones that did get public funding have, it's not a lot more, but they have more gender diversity than the ones that didn't.
Yeah, like also, for example, in Berlin, we have a music board, which has a big funding structure, and then they say it's obligation to book more than half of all lineup female acts to get funding. So yeah, if this is happening everywhere, then we will have a bit more higher female percentages. But still, festivals with public funding booked 26 female acts and 62 male, and non-binary acts were 1.2%, and mixed acts were 8.5%.
Yeah. So just compared to the ones that we could find out definitely did not get public funding, which I would guess most of those 38 are American festivals. The proportions are a lot different there. Fewer non-binary, fewer female, more male. So, but almost the exact same mixed.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And then the table 9 tells us gender proportions by audience size. So festival size now not according to acts numbers, but audience.
Right. Yeah, and again, similar thing. The lower the stakes, in a capitalistic sense, the more diversity you're going to have, and the higher the stakes in terms of money and visibility, the less. So, we see that the smaller the attendance, we've got pretty good, not totally equal, but pretty good percentages here. So.
Yeah, and then the highest female percentage is have festivals with 1,000 to 2,000 audience attendance, which was 35.1% female, 50.4 male, 4.3 non-binary, 9.4 mixed acts.
Yeah.
Which is quite much more progress.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think I had mentioned before, for people like you and a lot of other people in female pressure, if you're a female DJ or a non-binary DJ, these tables are kind of like a look into your, your prospects. It's like, oh, does the festival have fewer than 2,000 people attending it? I'm gonna have a better likelihood of getting booked. Are the curators, have at least one woman or non-binary person on the team, then I'm more likely to get booked. If the team is all male, my likelihood of getting booked is very small. And so this communicates like a story to people who want to be a DJ, it's interesting. And I think it's, this might be a good point to jump down to the discussion section where, because we want to change this story, we want the non-male DJ to look at these graphs some year and say, hey, I have plenty of opportunity in any kind of situation.
Yeah. So like now we have these discussion pages.
Yeah. So the comparison with the other studies, that was just to say that there are other studies out there that are, similar to this, where people are talking about gender distribution essentially in the music industry. I think the way that facts stands out from these is that it's been going on for so long. It's not a one-off thing or even a 2-year thing. It's something we've been doing for 7 years now, or really 8 years. And it's, it's also just the amount of festival editions we're counting, and the worldwide, even just even before Facts 2020, it was, it's not just one region or one continent, but we're really trying to look at the global picture. So, but these are all really interesting studies that we thought should be highlighted. And we've talked a little bit about the strengths and limitations of the survey, just gathering the insane amount of data, and then our statistician going through and kind of putting it into a form that our designer, Ale Hop, could then massage into these graphs and design. So that's just an insane amount of work, and it's a lot of data, and it's not going to be perfect, but it's stable. The data is stable. Our statistician really makes sure of that. So, and then the counting the gender of the curators and stuff like that. Like as we discussed, we couldn't get the data for everything, so
Yeah.
that's tricky. But yeah, the things that really I would like people to read is the section that says suggestions for festival organizers, artistic directors, and artists, because that gets to what we were talking about before, how, you know, to see real progress, we have to see everyone or a lot of people buying into this idea that that there are, first of all, that female DJs exist, non-binary DJs exist, and there are a lot of them. And if you're not booking them, it's because you're not looking in the right places. I think, you know, and also just making your event or your venue feel safe for everyone. Just a zero tolerance level for hate speech or hate actions or punching people. I just still cannot wrap my head around that. You know, just that everyone involved, from the bartender to the security person to the sound person to the organizer to the curator to the person in the audience to the person on the stage, every person has to buy into this world should be equal for everyone, and you know, that kind of thing. So but
yeah, obviously this year we won't have much festivals, but yeah, maybe it can be really good preparation year to learn how to organize safe and fun and with good music festivals for everyone.
Yeah.
And then sorry.
Oh, go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to mention that femalepressure.net, we have an amazing database. You can find a lot of female non-binary artists in your region or anywhere else. And yeah, I mean, like, if you are making festivals, you must be curious person. Then so it's just fun dig deeper into like our database and somewhere else to find female or transgender non-binary artists, and then it's just fun meeting new talents. And then maybe, I mean, I know since I was running also my own party series, and then since we are super low budget, I was asking all my friends to come to DJ for ultra less money, but like super hospitality. So I can't go to completely unknown DJ and hey, do you want to play at my 50 people party for 100 euro or something? It's super difficult. So like you tend to talk to DJs in friends circle, but still I completely lost my point.
Well, it's just the idea of finding new people and being curious. And
I think artists are happy to go to unknown place and then playing sometimes also small in a small venue, and I think so. Everyone can be more brave and then just talk to unknown people and then like, hey, you are this and that mix is super cool, or this production, wow. And then like, yeah, I think with enthusiasm you can convince everyone to play at your festival. So I think just dig deeper and then find your favorite artist, and then not because of gender ratio, but just your curiosity will be more satisfied to book more diversity of genders and races and everything.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, is to just be more curious about. I know since when I joined Female Pressure, you know, because of the mailing list, I get all these people saying, here's my new release, here's my new, and I hear such an incredible diversity of music, and I couldn't imagine going back. I'm not paying Spotify anymore for anything because I don't like them, but but you know, I used to go to Spotify and say, oh, just play me whatever you want in this certain type of genre. And
Yeah.
it always ends up being kind of these well-known musicians. And I can't
Mm.
imagine going back to that, you know, like
Mm.
once
Yeah.
you start getting into like a really diverse
Yeah.
scene with
Yeah.
and realizing just how many talented musicians there are out there,
Yeah. So
like
incredible.
you don't want to go back to just listening to the same 5 people
Mm.
over and
Mm.
over. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's like what you had said before was, you know, when we were talking about this, like to just like it can be fun, you know,
Yeah. Definitely.
diversifying your
Yeah.
palette can actually just be fun and
Yes.
enriching. So
Mm. Yeah, and then like yeah, I want to promote also Currents FM. Then like we as a female pressure, we have also actually 2 pages, one collective page on which many female pressure artists has their own playlists, and then another one is female pressure page with playlists of monthly releases of members. So like if you follow us and then like subscribing our monthly release playlists for free, but still we welcome donations. But then yeah, you can find so many new artists, and I'm very happy that we started this playlist since I mean sometimes it's ultra overwhelming how many emails we get through female pressure mailing list. But yeah, as we have this structure of playlist, we have quite clear view or like listening of totally different types of electronic music on one side. And then from coming this month, next week, we will publish our monthly release playlist. We will feature also one visual artist from our network who will make a cover picture. So you can also find new visual artists. Yeah, so
that's
only good
cool.
things. Yeah, yeah, super good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, this is the page with our acknowledgement. I want to read this core survey team by name since they all made ultra crazy amount of counting. Yeah. So these were Angelica Lepa, Mary Fisher, Meg is here, and then Michelle Endo, Stephanie Roll, Susanne Kirchmeier, and Tanya Eman.
Yes, and then you can see all our many, many helpers, plus many other people who just submitted, you know, one off in the online form, and then Alai Hop, who did the graphic design, which was a huge help, and she did such a great job.
Yeah,
And then our
cool.
first ever press person, Noemi Burrell, we haven't Fax hasn't had a single volunteer to work on the press before, so
Mm,
that has been really cool to have someone who knows what they're doing,
yeah.
talking with journalists and setting up interviews and stuff. So that she's also been a really huge help.
Mm. Yeah,
So
Noemi made also that video which we watched at the very beginning too. Mm.
yeah, that's right. She made the video. So it's just an amazing amount of people and that contributed to this and really made it happen. So it's yeah, and I, you know, we in our monthly fax meeting, we were like, when are we going to do the next survey? And Susanna
Mm.
was like, well, you know, it depends on when festivals start happening again,
Mm.
because
Mm.
we haven't, you know, so many festivals have been canceled already this year. So
Yeah.
yeah, but someday when we're all allowed to gather together without threat
Mm.
of illness, we will uh, facts will continue on counting.
Yes.
Um, and I, you know, to your point that you said earlier about when we were talking about safe spaces, and you were saying, oh, you know, the the point isn't really an issue right now because people can't meet in spaces. I think
Mm.
there's still an element of creating a safe space online, you know, because a
Yeah.
lot of people are moving
True.
their sets and stuff to online and live streaming.
Mm.
And I think there's a lot of work to be done there, and also in terms of, you know, what they call cyberbullying, you
Mm.
know,
Mm.
to really create a safe space for that, shutting down hateful commenters and stuff like that. You know, there's room for safety there also.
Yeah, that happened also recently for a streaming channel in Berlin. My friend DJ Fat in the club, she was DJing, and then she comes from Korea, and then some people commented like coronavirus or something. Just she is Asian, and I'm like, fuck, what is this? And then I mean, like, I was happy that channel quite reacted immediately, and then also made a bold statement that we really don't accept any types of racism, etc. But still, this is happening always with these comment sections. And then, yeah, also I'm singing in a choir, and we have online rehearsals too. But then we talked at the very beginning, we will make constructive comments, and then not just criticizing this is bad or something. You know, you need always constructive opinion, or like tell them in a nice way, which is actually also really important in a real physical space. But if you don't see this person in real, then maybe you are kind of more aggressive,
Right.
or possibly. So like we need to take care of that too.
Yeah, yeah. And I think, you know, what that venue did with shutting that down really quickly and saying we don't accept this, that's definitely what any venue should do. And, you know, ideally, I know some websites used to do this, they would vet the comments. So if someone made a comment, you had someone with the online publication had to read it first before it got approved. So to make sure there was no hate speech in it. But yeah, and also, like you said, the distance that happens when you're commenting, you know, instead of in person, face to face, where you might be more cautious or more respectful, not seeing that person's face, somehow they become not human to you. And you, the worst sides of a person's personality just leaps to the front and becomes this awful commenter. So I think it's just you know, the whole facts thing is just pointing out a larger human societal issue with the dehumanization of certain types of people, and how we have to change that. You know, we have to raise awareness about it, and we have to get people to not, you know, dehumanize other human beings just based on arbitrary things, so or anything. So yeah.
So hopefully, like someone watching us now had a good input, and yeah, hopefully we will see us in real life soon.
Yeah.
Oh no, then, yeah, that was our Facts 2020, and then you can download all PDF on femalepressure.net, and then you have this logo behind me. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah. I have it too. Yes, I have only female pressure on it, but yeah, just click on the logo on femalepressure.net, and then you can find the whole PDF for you. And yeah, thank you for watching, and yeah, thank you Hope and Austin from Currents FM, and you helped me super a lot setting up our current page, and then also this streaming. Thank you so much, and then also all female pressure members, artists, researchers, everyone booking on everything. So amazing network we are. Yeah, and then Meg, please tell us.
Yes, thank you, Aiko, for organizing. You made this happen.
I just had a lot of time and then wanted to do something. And yeah. Hopefully this was good input for you watching this. And then yeah, thank you, and thank you. You are patient listening to my strange English. Okay, cool. Have a nice day and night, and see you soon in the real life. はい。じゃあ、はいはい。 Okay.